Spotify says they have no plans to remove top-rated podcaster Joe Rogan from their platform after weeks of continued controversy surrounding both recent and older episodes. In a memo to staff last night, the CEO said that although he condemns recently revealed video showing Rogan using the N-word multiple times on his podcast, he says he does not believe that silencing Rogan is the answer, adding that canceling voices is a slippery slope. Instead, Rogan has chosen to remove 70 episodes from the platform, and Spotify says they've pledged $100 million to develop artists from what they're calling historically marginalized groups. The controversy surrounding Rogan started bubbling over weeks ago after he gave several guests airtime to promote COVID misinformation. That caused musicians like Neil Young and Joni Mitchell and others to pull their music from the platform in protest. Then last week, singer Niambi, who also left the platform in protest, released a video montage showing Rogan using the N-word on his show 24 times. Rogan says his comments have been taken out of context and offered this apology.
Now, I know that to most people, there is no context where a white person is ever allowed to say that word, never mind publicly on a podcast. And I agree with that now. I haven't said it in years, but for a long time, when I would bring that word up, like if it would come up in conversation, instead of saying the N-word, I would just say the word. I thought as long as it was in context, people would understand what I was doing.
Rogan is reportedly paid $100 million by Spotify, and the company says his show, The Joe Rogan Experience, is #1 in 93 markets. He's also not new to controversy. In September, he said that he was taking ivermectin to treat his COVID, a drug the FDA has urged people not to use. And in 2020, he faced backlash for transphobic comments he made on his show and for hosting far-right conspiracy theorist Alex Jones. Now, a Trump-affiliated conservative site called Rumble is trying to lure Rogan to leave Spotify with a $100 million contract of their own. Joining me now to discuss is Associate Professor of Political Science at Howard University, Dr. Niambi Carter, and founder of Press Run Media, Eric Boehlert. So, Niambi, is Spotify basically saying that Joe Rogan is too big to cancel?
Yeah, I mean, pretty much. I mean, they've already said that they've pledged their money and their support to Joe Rogan and will continue to allow him a platform. I mean, I think it would be probably terrible to take him off now because I think it would make him more of a martyr and more of a hero. I mean, we see all of the sort of kudos he got for this really, I would say, rather basic non-apology that he did today. And so I just think, Spotify is here to make money, and it's more than Joe Rogan. It's his audience that Spotify is thinking about. His audience is massive, and they know that, and they're going to continue to cater to that audience.
So, Eric, were you buying the CEO's rationale here when he said, canceling voices is a slippery slope? Because to me, it struck hollow, and it seemed to me as a diversion, right? So he went from a real conversation that should have been had about company policy and tried to turn that into a First Amendment conversation about whether or not a person has a right to speak. If Joe Rogan is not on Spotify, he still has a right to speak, i.e. this Trump-affiliated group. Other people will pay Joe Rogan $100 million. It's not that Joe Rogan's going to go away and not have a voice. Were you buying this letter that the CEO sent out last night?
No, and he has to send a letter every week. He sent one last night, and the Sunday before that, he sent another one. It's every Sunday night. He's got to do damage control because he's afraid about the stock price, tanking, and he's afraid about more artists taking their catalogs and leaving. No, we've had this kind of phony debate about censorship. When it was about Neil Young saying, "Don't play my music," isn't censorship in any way, shape, or form. But a lot of people try to, frame it that way. And your point about the CEO, slippery slope. Look, here's the deal. When we talk about COVID misinformation, Spotify has a policy on record. You cannot lie about the vaccine. You cannot spread misinformation that will do public harm during the pandemic. That is their policy. They brag to the Wall Street Journal. They've taken down thousands of podcast episodes. I mean, they have an untold number of podcasts. They're bragging about how they've taken down podcasts and songs that were, that spread lies about the vaccine. But Joe Rogan is untouchable. Oh, none of this applies to Joe Rogan. Oh, we're going to donate another $100 million so people will let us be hypocrites. So Spotify has done such damage to its brand in the last 2 months. I mean, last year it was basically known as kind of a feel-good music podcast outpost. And now the face of Spotify is this anti-vaccine zealot who likes to spew racial slurs. It's amazing what they've done to themselves just because they couldn't take the common sense step of saying, you're violating our own content rules. We're going to do something about it. But they absolutely refuse to.
Yeah, but did Rogan's apology even strike you as honest? One of the episodes that I saw, in his apology, he says, sometimes people would bring it up, and in context, they'd be saying N-word, and I would just say the word rather than, the euphemism of the N-word. But that was not the episode that I saw. I saw him openly mocking it. Like, oh, this is a thing we can't say. Oh my God, what you said, he turned to one of the other people on the podcast and they're teasing, they're going back and forth like this is like a hot potato word. This is ridiculous. Of course we can say this. That's the context. He was mocking the idea that he, as a white person in America, would have something off limits to him, and that was obscene to him, that he should have access to this word, and as he has to every other word, and he wanted to say it, and he let people say it on his show. That's what he did in the episode that I saw. So to me, the apology wasn't even true. How did you read the apology?
Look, I thought it was self-serving. I think he did something that he knows, right, would play well, because he comes and he says, well, I've done these things and I realize now that it's incredibly stupid in hindsight. I never thought that I would be taken out of context. I mean, Joe Rogan has been in the media for a very long time. The idea that you don't think things get taken out of context regularly is insane to me. So I think Joe Rogan was being insincere on a number of levels, but he also knew that if he did and said the right thing and looked contrite enough, I mean, the people who listened to him, I mean, the slaps on the back that he was getting in the comments for being a decent human being, when all he has done over the last 15 or so years is market himself as this sort of anti-PC, hero who's just going to say the things that you're not supposed to say in public to show people what the freedom of speech, that this country is supposed to be founded on really means. And this idea that, like you said, that words could be off limits, that the N-word would be something that's just like any other word and is devoid of any meaning or any pain or any of the things that are associated with that word, is part of his brand. So now this sort of, heel turn that he's doing to sort of show this sort of kinder, gentler, more enlightened Joe Rogan who would not say that word anymore, just I think is a little stale at this point. I think we all knew, and I think we all see how easily he was able to really raise his esteem for his followers. I don't think this does anything for people who've never been into Joe Rogan, but for his followers, now he looks virtuous, right? Now he looks like this sort of enlightened guy that people are just giving a really hard time, and this is cancel culture run amok. So I think Joe Rogan is a very savvy media player here, and this apology did just what he thought it was going to do, which is bring some people who might have been on the fence about him further in, and to keep those people who were already in the Joe Rogan camp firmly there by saying, oh, I know this sounds racist and therefore I messed up. So I clearly have to, say, I'm sorry now.
So, Eric, Andrew Yang, who was on Rogan's show in 2019, rushed to Rogan's defense in a now deleted tweet, and he tweeted, I don't think Joe Rogan is a racist. The man interacts with and works with black people literally all of the time. Yang has since apologized and called his reaction wrong-headed. Actor Dwayne Johnson, known as The Rock, also supported Rogan at first, but then after learning about the N-word usage, said he's now become educated on it and it was a learning moment for him. What do you make of these celebrities trying to rush to Rogan's defense, and what impact that has on this debate?
Well, I think they rushed to his defense because he's got 10 million viewers, 10 million listeners. I mean, he moves product. He moves subscriptions if you're a writer. He can move alcohol if you're in the alcohol business. He can get votes if you're in the in the politics business. He is he is a home run for all these people. Now, having said that, I think Dwayne Johnson deserves credit. He, unlike a lot of media pundits I've seen who rushed to Joe Rogan's defense, mostly a lot of white men, frankly, they've gone silent after this N-word, clip went viral. The Rock had the decency to come forward and said, "I'm wrong. I've learned more. I'm going to think about this." A lot of people in the media, have not and are still defending Rogan after the clip, or they've gone silent, and they're hearkening back to, oh, this is censorship. This is censorship. I'm sorry. If Louis Farrakhan had a podcast and was saying outlandish things about white people, none of these media pundits would be standing up for him and saying, oh, it's free speech. Oh, it's censorship. They would say, that's not part of our public discourse. That's not part of our civic conversation. I see a lot of male privilege. This idea that Joe Rogan can't say anything he wants, that infuriates a lot of people in the media. And so I would like to see, more people in the media reflect on their defense of him in light of the recent revelations and saying, well, maybe I was wrong, and do what The Rock did, which was the right thing.
Dr. Niambi Carter and Eric Boehlert, thank you both for joining us tonight. I really appreciate it.